So there's a lot of ups and downs. I have a friend that he said he was digging a yard one time. He was in the way back of the lot. There was a big farmhouse up in the front, and he went to the back property and he found a great bottle dump. He was down, keeping his head low, and I'm thinking, why didn't you just go ask permission? But he's like, oh, what I find is mine. This guy was like, anything I find is mine. I don't care if I'm in your backyard. So he's digging up bottles, and he said he had quite a pile going. And just getting right into it, and he looked up, and the lady from the house was standing over him. And she says, you need to leave right now. And he said, this is kind of shocking, he says, those are my bottles, I'm taking them with me. And she says, no, those are my bottles, you're leaving them right there.
There you go.
I said, well, what did you do? He said he took his bottles and left. I was like, man, the nerve of some of these bottle diggers. So I said that just because I don't know if you guys get into these situations where you're prospecting, you've got the metal locator going, and you're getting hot on a trail. Next thing you know, you're in somebody's backyard. You don't know who it is, but they're sleeping. I don't know how that goes, but it brings out some interesting situations. Getting to the point where I felt like I wasn't sure I was going to keep finding things because it's, permission's hard, and all the old timers have told me that I'm not going to find anything. They say, we got it all 50 years ago. We dug everything. But I'm telling you, I've got a museum in Naples, right on 302. I hope you come by this summer. And it is filled to the hilt with things that we have found. One room is as big, almost as big as this. And I've got glass shelves and cabinets that are filled with artifacts. Mostly from me, but I've got two other friends that have done some diving with me. And they'll put some pieces in there. In fact, we're going down the Saco River in Hiram, which isn't too far away, if any of you know where that is. Telling you all my good spots. And I think we were just snorkeling at the time. And the bottles that are laying at the bottom of the river are black, so you can't always see them. But I was teaching who is this? This is my son-in-law. This was my other friend, how I just snorkel along and look at the bottom of the river. It's pretty easy, anyone can do it. So he said, did you see what you just swam over? And he picked up this beautiful pepper sauce. It's emerald green. I mean, they're only worth about $60, $70, but still, it's a pretty find. It's a nice find. He picked that up, and we cleaned it up really good. He keeps that. A lot of his things he'll keep at the museum, like this. That's a pretty piece. Got it. This is called a pepper sauce. A lot of the pepper sauces were decorated and colored so you wouldn't see what you were really putting on your steak. Pepper sauce was meant to kill the taste of bad steak. So, 100 years ago, you didn't say the steak is turning raw. You went and got some flavoring that made it so you couldn't tell it was raw. And they colored it so you couldn't tell what was in here. But peppercorn, spicy flavor, anything that would make the meat taste good. You could eat it and not worry about getting trichinosis or whatever it is you could get.
They had those in different colors.
These came in green, emerald green, aqua.
Clear.
You'll find some other colors. Clear.
I broke a green one and a clear one.
Oh, you did?
I broke 3 bottles in my life.
You broke them?
I dropped them.
I
don't pick up my bottles anymore.
This says S&P, which S&P is still making. I think they own the Worcestershire sauce company. But this being pre-machine made has a hand tool top and probably about 1890. Yeah, about 110. Very pretty. You never know what you're going to find. I've had some other, speaking of the Saco River, since we're on that, I was down there this fall, about 3 months ago, and I thought, okay, I'm certified. I have the tanks and everything, and there was this hole we wanted to get into. And I thought, my son-in-law wants to follow me and at least go down with me. It's not very deep. We're probably talking 10 to 15 feet. So I got this great idea to hook him up with an extra mouthpiece. And I screw the hose to my extra buddy hose port that I have on my dive gear. And I would have all the weights on and the equipment. Then I'd give him a 50-foot hose, and he could just hold the mouthpiece, go down a little bit, look around, and come back. So I thought that was a pretty good deal, you know. And I was telling him, we'll be safe, we'll stick together. So we got up to this bend in the Saco River, and the river's kind of high, the current's kind of pulling a little bit. I wouldn't recommend you guys doing this because it's a little treacherous. So we got to this river and we slowly went out and we said, all right, let's stick together. Okay. As soon as we get in, the grade of the bank underneath the water starts going down pretty steep and pretty quick. And once you get to the bottom of the rise, you know, you're 10, 12 feet down, it gets a little dark. And I turned around and I couldn't see him anywhere. I figured, all right, well, he's just enjoying himself. I'm going to enjoy myself for a little while. Then I'll check on him. Again, he's got a mouthpiece that he can let go. And he's a good swimmer, a good snorkeler. So he goes down, I went down, and I'm looking around, and I didn't find a whole lot. But with the current pulling me and me having all the gear, it was getting a little tough for me. I was starting to get tired, and you know, my legs were starting to get a little cramped, and I thought, you know, I should play this a little safe. I should probably get back, just go swim back 20 or 30 feet and just stand on the shore for a while and rest. So I surfaced, and when you surface as a diver, it's 3 or 4 times, maybe 10 times harder, because now you don't, you know, when you're under the current, you can just hang onto a rock on the bottom and stay where you are. Once you surface, it starts pulling you downstream. So I started struggling a little, and I'm thinking, okay, I need to let him know that we need to come over because I got to rest. And then I started thinking about my heart. How good is it? Because I had heart surgery about 6 years ago, quadruple bypass. And, you know, my doctor might not like me out there in the middle of the stream. So I thought, all right, I've got to swim. And I'm swimming against the current. And I started pulling on the hose, which meant, you know, come on up. Let's work together. Well, he pulls back like, no, I'm finding stuff. Right? And you know what? He is all the way on the other side of the river, and I'm on this one. You know, it's 50 feet, but that's enough. 50 feet is probably here, that back wall, and that's enough. I needed to get to shore. I was like, so then I started thinking, so this is how they die. You know, they float down the river. They got no more strength, and I had no more strength. My legs are cramping up. I'm worried that my heart is going to start doing something, but it never did. I was happy about that. Finally, I pulled hard enough on the hose. I must have yanked it right out of his mouth or something. He came up. He's like, what are you doing? And I said, I need to rest. You need to get over here. So he swam over quick, and I made it to shore. I realized that if we do this again, I'm going to give him 5 feet of hose, maybe 10 feet of hose. 50 is way too much. He could get into trouble. But we did find some neat things. The first time I went with my buddy, I found this little hole in the Saco in Highland about 25, 30 feet down, and I thought, man, I'm a fair weather diver. That's the extent. That's as far as I would go. But I went down. At first, I saw him trying to go down, and he was tangled up around my line. He's not certified. He didn't have any gear, just a breather, and he's got the anchor line tied around his rope, helping to pull him down. And I tapped him on the shoulder. I said, you're not doing this. No. I said, you know, why don't you save this for another time when we can work together on it, and I'll go down. So I went down, and I went and found this just by sweeping the bottom of the river. It's all sand. You really don't see anything. But I realized that if there's an old house on the bank of the river, there's got to be something in the river. So I started sweeping my hand across the sand like that, and you can see this little portion is all that I uncovered with my hand. It's kind of black. This was actually kind of showing. It's a little different tint. And so I ended up pulling this whole jug out. When I got to the top, he said, hey, I'll give you $50 for that. I said, no, that's all right. That's going in the museum. I had a couple people say it's worth a couple hundred. Just a pretty jug. And anytime you find any pottery, which if you're digging old iron, there's probably glass in pottery. Anything with blue paint is good. I can't tell you the number of times I've talked to people that have cleaned a painted jug. Someone painted a jug like that full of red paint. He found one at a yard sale 2 years ago. And he gave the lady $7 or $8 for it, took all the paint off, and there was a bird, a cobalt blue bird. $200 or $300 piece.
What's the stamp on there, Walt?
And the stamp on this one says A.B. Wheeler and Company, 60 Broad Street, Boston, Massachusetts. So just a pretty jug. The fact that it's intact is great. It's got a little hole in the bottom, actually a pretty good hole in the bottom. But I don't worry about that. You know, it displays nice.
And what's the time period on that?
This is probably 1840 to 1850. So.
Was it booze in those?
This, yeah, would have been a good whiskey bottle. Could have been molasses. I think Wheeler was a whiskey company.
So
whiskey or rum.
How much would that be worth if it wasn't whole milk?
If it was perfect, well, probably 250, I think.
what's the bottle?
With the whole, yeah, it's gone down probably 50, 75, maybe 85, 90.
You go to New York, you could probably sell it for 1,000.
You might be able to, yeah. In New York, it may sell for a lot more. But I've had a few people offer to buy it, and I'm just thinking it's worth more as a display than it is. Some of the other things,
Red one at home.
in shallow water, 2 feet, 3 feet of water, with my snorkel down in, what town was this? Bolster's Mills, little river. Almost any town
Don't
has a
tell
river.
any of us.
I won't tell you. All right. Really nice old town, that's all I'll
Just say
say.
Maine, New Hampshire, Mass.
I pulled this out and I thought, what is this? This is the strangest thing I've ever seen. It kind of looks like a pipe. And I thought, if I get stopped driving home with this on my front seat, the cop's going to say, where did you get that? Oh, who does that belong to? And I'm going to say, I found it. And he's going to say, that's what they all say. So I displayed it at the museum, but I've had a doctor come in and say, this is a blood extractor. They would have put this against the cut, had a balloon here, and drawn the blood to here. But I've had another person come in and say, no, that is not a blood extractor, that is a breast pump, and tell me that it is definitely a breast pump. So I don't know. And I had another person say that it's a inhaler, where they would have put a compound in here, cooked it, and then breathed it with a balloon to help force that into the lung. So it's definitely handmade. You can tell this is all tooled by hand. Very unique piece.
I've never seen anything like that.
It's very strange. I'll just show you a couple things that I thought were interesting. Right behind Rennie's used to be an iron shop, and they always threw the iron in the brook, all the little pieces. So they also threw marbles in the brook, or some boy did, one little kid, I'm sure. So over 30, 40, 50 years, they just kind of melded together. That's embedded in the iron. So my very first diving expedition, I said, all right, I'm going to do this right. Now I'm certified. I'll go to a little pond in Bridgeton, and I'll test the stuff out. So I got my buddy in my canoe, and I said, why don't you just sit in the canoe? Here's my dog, and you and the dog can just sort of go above me. I said, if anything happens, if I bubble stop, which isn't the right way to do it, don't take my experiences, but I said, if the bubble stopped, then bring me up with the hose. So he came out there, and I swam to the middle of the lake, and he's there with the dog and the canoe and just watching, and I submerged right there, maybe 20 feet, 15 feet. And I was just dipping my arm in the mud, because the silt is about this, maybe even that deep. And I put my arm all the way in, and it would be hard to pull it back out. So I'd get it out. And at one point, on my third time, I said, this is the last time I'm trying this. I hit this really nice pottery vase. This is a 1850-ish, what they call a master ink. The schools would have had one of these, and they'd fill up all the little ink wells for the kids on their desks, like this. This is called a, I forgot what this is called.
Pumpkin?
Funnel ink. And they'd put it inside like that, and the kids would have these on their desk. So I found that and got it to shore, and everything was going right. And then I went back out. My buddy's there right above me. But I forgot to tell him that my dog has separation anxiety. And when he doesn't see me, he starts getting upset. And in the beginning, it was all right. By the time I went back down, the dog was so upset he jumped out of the boat. So now Rod, my friend Rod, was thinking, oh, this dog's going to drown. I mean, he's kind of a portly dog. He can't swim very good. So he went over, he got the dog, and he went to put him in the canoe. And in doing that, he flipped the canoe. Now I'm down digging bottles underneath, and my world is fine. He's up top, he's in the water, the canoe's upside down, and the dog's in the water. And they don't have any life jackets. I think I told him to get a cushion or something. I think he just didn't. So now he's thinking, this is not good. We've got a situation. All right, he says, I know what to do. I'll put the dog underneath the canoe, and I'll get under the canoe. We'll flip it over, and I'll hold onto the railing, and at least I'll have an air supply and a railing. But he said after a while, the dog was sucking up all the air. So I pushed the dog out, thinking, all right, well, I'll just hang And then he realized that dog's going to die. He's not going to make it to shore. So he got out. He said, the only way we're going to survive is swimming to shore. So him and the dog, he kept pushing the dog. He's holding the canoe. Got himself over to shore. Flips the kayak over. Gets the dog back in. Finally gets all settled. And then I surface. And I'm like, hello, you're my help. Why aren't you out here? What's going on? So as it turns out, you know, this whole thing happened while I was down there having fun. And I just thought that was kind of interesting. My first dive, that I almost killed my buddy, or my dog almost killed my buddy.